Call the meeting to order at 6:47. All right, so we will try and move quickly to get through all the administrative items. That way we can get to the developer presentation and the other presentation following. So first thing on the list is to confirm the agenda. I'd like to have one modification. That's just to introduce our Central Maryland Chamber representative. We'll do that after we approve the meeting notes. Is there any objection to, I'm going to shorthand this a little bit if that's okay with the committee's permission. Any objection to adding item C to introduce the Central Maryland Chamber representative now that we have one? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to say that the agenda is amended to add that item. So any other items to add to the agenda or make modifications to the agenda? Okay, could I get a motion to approve the agenda, please? Thanks, Sandy. Is there a second?
Second, Martin.
Okay, thanks, Martin. Any objections? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Okay, the meeting notes for our last meeting in May. They were sent out by email. Does anyone have any modifications to make to the meeting minutes? Okay, hearing none, could I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Sandy, thank you. Could I get a second, please?
Seconded.
Thanks, Martin. Okay, any objection to approving of the meeting minutes for May 2024's meeting? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Okay, the new item. So, Dewan, welcome to the OTCAC. Thanks for coming today. Sorry for the late start. Just wanted to see if you wanted to just introduce yourself briefly.
Sure. First off, thanks for having me. Mark, thank you for the tour. Looking forward to working with you all. My name is Dewan Claiborne. I'm the new president and CEO of your Central Maryland Chamber of Commerce. And so looking forward to helping, looking forward to serving, and figuring out how I can add value to this group. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Dewan. Welcome. All right, so our first presentation on the docket is for Odenton Junction. And so I see, Courtney, that Mark made you a presenter. So I'll turn this over to you.
Excellent. Thank you all. Am I able to share my screen, Mark?
You should be. And I did want to ask just real quick, Courtney, if there's anybody else attending that you want me to pull in as a panelist.
Yeah, so I believe our client, Shalonda, is on the call, and I believe the architect might be on the call, but I'm not sure who from Mosley is attending.
If you do want to raise your hand, I can, if you're from a member of the public or a part of the project team, I can then create Aaron. Perfect. And okay, so I've requested that they join as panelists here, but
Can everyone see my screen then?
yes.
Excellent. So I will begin, and if after I'm done with my portion of the presentation, if Shalonda would like to say anything, I would ask her to do so, and then I'll turn it over to Mosley as well to go over the architectural elevations. So good evening, everyone. My name is Courtney Gallagher. I'm an associate with Morris and Ritchie Associates. We're the civil engineering and landscape architecture firm working with Osprey Property Company to develop the subject properties. This meeting is fulfilling the requirements of the Odenton Town Center Master Plan, as well as the Anne Arundel County Subdivision Code Section 17-2-107 for the project. The subdivision code specifically states that a community meeting must be held within the 6 months prior to the initial submittal of a preliminary plan, and it is the developer's intent to submit a preliminary plan for this project within the next 6 months. The subject project is known as the Odenton Junction Apartments, and the entire project area is comprised of 5 total properties, all of which are shown on tax map 21 and total 3.67 acres. The entirety of the property and surrounding area is zoned OTC-C, previously known as O-COR, which is the Odenton Town Center Core Zone. The project is located within the Town Center Development Policy Area, and specifically, it's located within the Odenton Town Center, and as such, it is subject to the Odenton Town Center Master Plan. The developer has opted to use the new 2024 Odenton Town Center Master Plan for this project. In addition, the project is located within the following economic development designations: the State Transit-Oriented Development Designated Area, Priority Funding Area, and Sustainable Communities. The project is located at the intersection of Maryland Route 175, which is shown here at the bottom of the page, and Town Center Boulevard, which is here to the right of the page. It's bounded by Town Center Boulevard to the east, Hale Street to the north, private properties here to the west and south, and then to the far south here, Route 175. And then bifurcating the property here is Dare Street. Based on discussions with the Office of Planning and Zoning, it is our understanding that since the properties are not contiguous, we'll have to process the development as two separate projects. One for the development that occurs on the east side of Dare Street here, which we're calling Phase 1, and one for the development that occurs on the west side of Hale Street, which we're calling Phase 2. The entirety of the property is proposed to be developed with workforce housing. So first I'll go through some of the existing conditions, and I apologize, I'm going to be repeating myself a little bit because I'm going to speak on the two phases separately, but a lot of the information is the same or similar. Phase 1 here is comprised of 4 total properties, including parcel 153, part of lot 33, parcel 450, part of lot 33, parcel 462, part of lot 20, and parcel 155, part of lot 20, which totals 2.67 acres. Phase 1 is currently undeveloped and is predominantly wooded, but also contains a small area of open lawn. In addition, portions of existing Town Center Boulevard and Hale Street overlap portions, and Dare Street overlap portions of the properties. There are no non-tidal wetlands, streams, floodplains, or associated buffers on or in the vicinity of the properties. At this time, we are unaware of any specimen trees that may be located on the property. In addition, there are no steep slopes on the properties. This assessment is based on Arundel County GIS information. In addition, there are no highly erodible soils on the properties. Phase 2 is comprised of 1 property, parcel 143, lot 32, which totals 1 acre. Phase 2 is currently undeveloped and is also predominantly wooded. In addition, portions of Hale Street and Dare Street overlap portions of the property. There are no non-tidal wetlands, streams, floodplains, or associated buffers on or in the vicinity of this property. At this time, we're unaware of any specimen trees that may be located on that property. There are no steep slopes and there are no highly erodible soils, and this assessment is based on Arundel County GIS information. Phase 1 is proposed to be developed with a total of 110 multifamily workforce housing units located within 2 buildings, shown here and here. Both buildings will be approximately 56 feet high and are proposed to have 5 total stories, including a ground floor parking garage in each building. The proposed units will be a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. The parking required for the 110 units totals 133 spaces, which includes a 10% parking reduction for workforce housing that is located within 1/4 mile of a high-frequency transit stop. A total of 133 parking spaces are proposed, and that includes a mix of the garage spaces beneath these 2 buildings, the surface parking spaces, and on-street parking. In addition, 8 excess surface spaces that are located within Phase 2 are being applied to the parking requirement for Phase 1. There is a green area requirement of 0.27 acres and 0.66 7 acres of green area is proposed in phase 1. In addition, 11,276 square feet of public activity space is required for the project, and a total of 7,446 square feet is proposed, which is 66% of the total requirement. That public activity space is this plaza here at the corner, the intersection of Hale and Town Center Boulevard. The developer will provide an incentive program to account for the proposed reduction to the public activity space. A total of 7 bike parking spaces are required and 7 are proposed. A total of 3 electric vehicle parking spaces are required and 3 are proposed. And the site is designed in conformance with the setback requirements outlined in the Odenton Town Center Master Plan. Stormwater management will be provided in accordance with Arundel County requirements, and the stormwater features will predominantly be microbioretention facilities and microbioswales that'll be located throughout the site. Landscaping will also be provided in accordance with the Odenton Town Center Master Plan and Anne Arundel County Landscape Manual requirements, including public street trees, interior parking lot plantings, landscape and screening for urban streetscapes, supplemental surface parking in the OTC-C zone, and landscape and screening for multifamily residential uses. The majority of the proposed landscaping will include native plantings. The property is located along 3 active frontage edges, including Town Center Boulevard, Hale Street, and Dare Street. In accordance with the Odenton Town Center manual requirements, over 50% of the project frontage along Town Center Boulevard and Hale Street will contain building facade. In addition, over 50% of the frontage along Dare Street will contain building facade, fences, walls, or hedges. In addition, the manual identifies 2 landmark locations, one at the intersection of Town Center Boulevard and Route 175, where we are proposing building signage. And the second location is at the intersection of Town Center Boulevard and Hale Street, where we are proposing this plaza with pedestrian connections. Phase 2 is proposed to be developed with a total of 12 over/under multifamily workforce housing units with individual garages. The buildings will be approximately 46 feet high and are proposed to have 4 total stories, including ground floor garages. The proposed units will all be 3-bedroom units. The parking required for the 12 units totals 22 spaces, which also includes the 10% parking reduction for workforce housing units that are located within 1/4 mile of a high-frequency transit stop. A total of 32 parking spaces are proposed, including a mix of garage and tandem driveway spaces and surface spaces. 8 of those excess surface spaces, as previously noted, are being applied towards the parking requirement for phase 1. There is a green area requirement of 0.1 acres and 0.24 acres of green area is proposed. 2,178 square feet of public activity space is required for the project, and a total of 1,200 square feet is proposed, which is 55% of the requirement. Again, the developer will provide an incentive program to account for the proposed reduction in the public activity space. A total of 2 bike spaces are required and 2 are proposed. Less than 1/2 of an electric vehicle space is required and none are proposed in this phase. And this site is also designed in conformance with the setback requirements outlined in the Odenton Town Center Master Plan. Again, stormwater management will be provided in accordance with Anne Arundel County requirements, which will predominantly be microbioretention facilities located throughout the site. Landscaping will be provided in accordance with the Town Center Manual and our Master Plan and the Anne Arundel County Landscape Manual requirements, including public street trees, interior parking lot plantings, dumpster screening, landscape and screening for urban streetscapes, supplemental surface parking in the OTC-C zone, and landscape and screening for multifamily residential uses. The majority of the proposed landscaping for this phase will also be native plantings. The property is located along two active frontages, Hale Street and Dare Street. And in accordance with the requirements, over 50% of the project frontage along both of those streets will contain building facade and/or edge elements. Applying to both of the phases, since the sites are located within the Odenton Town Center, they are exempt from school APF, but children in this development will attend Odenton Elementary School, Arundel Middle School, and Arundel High School. In addition, some other features of the project will be providing an entry sign at the intersection of Hale and Dare Streets. And a building sign, as I previously noted, will be provided at the intersection of Route 175 and Town Center Boulevard. In addition, lighting will be provided along the streets as well as within the parking lots. There is no proposed on-site forest retention or reforestation areas with this project. Forest conservation requirements will be met via payment of fee in lieu, off-site plantings, and/or off-site forest banking. Modifications for this project will include a modification for clearing existing forest below the forest conservation threshold, and a modification may be required for clearing of specimen trees in the event that any are identified on the subject properties. And as previously noted, we will be submitting an incentive program to address the reduced public activity space area proposed within the development. The goals, policies, and strategies outlined in the Odenton Town Center Master Plan that guided the proposed development include prioritize native plantings, compatible building size and bulk, encourage pedestrian-oriented uses, encourage pedestrian scale building design and layouts, buildings close to roads, buildings designed to interact with outdoor spaces, architectural variation in building facades, encourage mid-rise multifamily buildings, locate workforce housing near transit, EV charging stations, limit surface parking lots in the core, and effective use of parking structures. So thank you all for bearing with me through that. That concludes my portion of the presentation. So I'd like to turn it over to either Sholanda or the representative from Mosley to talk about the architecture and/or a little bit more about the project. Thank you.
Shalonda is and by the way, my name says Shalonda. I'm actually Brian Lopez. I'm the president of Osprey Property Company. Shalonda is the development manager for the property. Is somebody from Mosley on?
Yeah, I'm here, Brian. This is Aaron.
Okay, Aaron. Do you want to walk through the architecture? Do you have
Sure.
there?
Courtney, do you have what we submitted attached to this, or I can bring it up if you don't?
Yes, I do. Give me one
Okay.
second. Let's see if I can. There you go.
So, hi everyone, I'm Aaron Zephyr with Mosley Architects. We are the architects for the project. So we're just going to show you some preliminary exterior concepts. This is a sort of bird's eye view from the northeast. So it's kind of looking into that public activity plaza at the corner of Hale and Town Center Boulevard there. So what you're seeing here are the two larger buildings, the one along Hale Street there, as Courtney's pointing out, and then the other one along Town Center Boulevard. A similar look to both of them. The materials palette we're using is a combination of brick and fiber cement siding, which is the lighter white color, and a fiber cement panel, which is the darker kind of charcoal color. And then another kind of third color of fiber cement panel, which is just an accent color, which is represented by that brighter green color. What you can see here is the base of each building, which is garage kind of in the portion away from the plaza, is clad entirely in brick. We'll have some openings that are designed to read more like windows, but those will be open to the garages inside. But then, as you can see, towards the plazas where we have the lobbies to each building and some amenity spaces. So you'll see some more glass there and a little more openness. The other thing we were trying to do is on the building to the left, which is on Town Center Boulevard. You see a little more of the brick on that facade, just kind of playing off the townhouses across the street, which have a similar kind of tan brick color. So we're taking that up to the 4th story of that building to relate to that context. And then you can kind of see further to the right are those stacked townhouses of the second phase that Courtney was describing. And those are, unlike the other two buildings, those are 2 units in each stack with garages underneath. So those are 4 stories total, as you can see. If you want to scroll to the next one, Courtney. So here are some just straight on elevations. You can see there's kind of a rhythm of bays along each facade to break up the scale. Some of the materials on the right are called out that I just went through. You can see some of the heights. I think Courtney mentioned as well in her presentation, around 56 feet, and that's at the low end. The site does slope kind of up from that corner, so you're really getting more like a 4.5 story building at each of the far ends where it steps down to the townhouses, which you can scroll to the next one, Courtney. Oh, and this was also just an alternate color study we just wanted to share with you. Obviously, we're very early in the process, but just showing some different options for the colors. The first one was kind of more based on the tan brick of the context, but as we delve into it, we'll continue to explore some options. You can go to the next one. And here are those stacked townhouse units. You can see it's basically, we're just kind of expressing each unit with separate materials there, with entrances marked by those green doors, which matches the accent color of the larger buildings. And again, the site kind of slopes up, so those units will step along with the grade, as you can see. I think that's about it. Yeah, 5 stories total for the large buildings, and then these are 4-story stacked townhouses. Brian or Shalonda, do you have anything you want to add?
I think Courtney and Aaron covered a lot of the physical features, great buildings. We do add a lot of amenity space within the buildings to help with resident retention and resident uses, such as we have live workspaces, so they have not a computer center, but places where people can work from the apartments themselves. And we've been working hard with trying to meet the requirements of planning and zoning. And we are also working with the transportation and public works for they have the CIP in that area for improving the roads. So we're trying to make sure our design matches up with what they're proposing as well. And we've also reached out and have been working with the county council to try and address any concerns that they have. So we've been working hard to make sure that we're trying to meet all the requirements of the area and work with the county to make sure we're giving them good product.
So Mark, I think we'd like to turn it over to the committee to answer any questions or take any comments.
Sure, Jason, I'll leave it up to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just have, well, if you could explain one more thing. Could you explain the proffers that you said that are being offered?
So we don't have a complete list of proffers at this time, but we are exceeding the amount of green area required. There might be a potential for additional bike spaces in excess of the requirements and in excess of the native planting requirements as well. But we can try to get you a full list of the anticipated proffers offline.
Okay, thank you. All right, so members of the committee, I see Chad, you have your hand up.
Yeah, good afternoon. Well, I guess evening now. I have a couple questions. and pardon my ignorance, when you say workforce, does that mean general workforce, or is there already a particular employer in mind that's going to be moving in there? Because I thought we talked about a project where they were making actual housing for employees, but I don't think this is it.
I'm not sure what you mean by what is housing for employees. I don't know if that's,
Is workforce just a designation of housing? So anybody who has, it's not, similar to low income housing, but is that just a different designation of housing? So I work at Fort Meade. So if a new employee comes to Fort Meade, can they
Yeah,
live in these apartments?
It's a use, it's how the county designates the use, and there are certain conditions that they have to meet as far as median income
Perfect.
that
right, I
are
think,
eligible. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think that you find median income as, or workforce housing as 80% and below, is, if I'm remember correctly, and that's what this is going to serve. 80% and below of the area median income.
Okay. And then I appreciate that clarification. And then the follow-up I have, so there is spaces for 3 electric charging stations
That's correct.
for the entire complex?
That is correct. That is,
So,
go ahead.
and what would be the max capacity?
I'm sorry, the max capacity.
How many rentals, how many properties or
Units.
Oh, there's
units?
a total of 122 units.
And so out of those 122, there's basically room for 3 electric cars?
That's correct. And that is the EV station requirement is based on, it's a percentage of the total parking spaces required. So that does meet the requirement for the for EV stations for the site, for the project.
Okay. And all right. So I understand where you're at. I guess from the installations perspective and where we're going and the trends we're seeing with our workforce, 3 charging stations would not meet the requirement for the workforce we would probably put in there, but I understand where the requirement comes from. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Martin, I saw your hand was up.
Yeah, just to continue on with what Chad was saying. If you only have 3 now, can you increase the number of charging stations in the garages? I assume that's where they're located, in the garages.
Actually, right now they're shown, I'm sorry, let me see if I can pull this back up. They're actually located in the parking lot right now. These 3 spaces here at the end are proposed for the electric charging stations. That's something we can definitely talk amongst the development team about. I can't make that call myself, but we can discuss it with their.
Yeah, I would think you'd be able to add more of those within the parking structure. Given the future of electric vehicles, I would agree with Chad's surprise that that's not enough to really cover it in the future. So maybe some way to adapt it in the future should you need to add more. The question I had was total acreage is 5.67 and
The total acreage is 3.67 between the 2 phases.
oh, you said another acre for phase 2. I was confused.
Yeah, sorry, it's 2.67 for phase 1 and then 1
Okay.
acre for phase 2.
Yes, for that amount of acres, 3.67 acres, that equates to, given this is forested land, that's about 238,550 pounds of CO2, or sorry, of a carbon. So in your reforestation, you're talking about, because you're losing the forest, what was your discussion about how to accommodate that?
Yeah, the reforestation requirements would be addressed in one or a combination of 3 ways. Either payment of a fee in lieu to the county's forest fund, off-site forest mitigation plantings, or forest mitigation banking, purchase of banking credits.
Yeah, and you haven't decided that yet, is that right?
No, that'll be part of a coordination with the county. It depends on what they would approve. The Office of Planning and Zoning.
Would you consider a further offset for the loss of trees there, solar panels on the roof?
I can't answer that question, but I can take it back to the development team to consider.
Third question is the bike space. I think you mentioned you had 3 of those or something. Given that the development is just across the street from the station, people would take the train. It's easy to hop on a bike and go across. So any plans for increasing that number?
We can definitely, again, take it back to the development team. Right now, I'm not aware of any discussion to increase the number, but we can certainly talk about it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from committee members?
Jason, I have one.
Sure.
In the rendering that showed the front of the 2 larger buildings, is parking proposed on Town Center Boulevard?
So partially, yeah. If you see kind of towards the left side of the building is parking on the first floor, which is actually going to be partially underground. You can see how the
No, I'm talking
Sites.
about on Town Center Boulevard itself. I
Oh, on
see
the street.
automobiles.
I see. Courtney, can you speak to that? I'm not sure where we ended up with that.
So no, I don't believe that parking is proposed on Town Center Boulevard. We even in that graphic, there are cars shown there, but we're not taking any credit for parking along Town Center Boulevard.
Okay, and how about Hale?
Yeah, so Hale Street is this is part of a county capital improvement project, and my understanding is that part of that project is to have on-street parking on Hale Street and on Dare Street. So we are showing on-street parking on those 2 streets.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, any other committee members? Okay, so I have a couple comments myself then. So first thing, one area you did not talk about, and I'm curious on if that was just you didn't want to bring it up or if it's a potential change of plan. Can you talk about this entrance that you're proposing on 175, the direct entrance from the parking lot to 175, please?
We are proposing an entrance here right on 175.
Okay, so I have concerns about that.
It's actually, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it's actually an emergency, it's going to be blocked off. It's supposed to be just an emergency exit for fire trucks or for emergency vehicles. It's not an actual entrance off of 175.
Okay, how is it going to be blocked off?
That I'm not sure of, and I'm not sure, Courtney, if Marilee had.
Yeah, typically what we would do in a situation like this is have a gate, a fence, and like a Knox box, something that with a Knox key that the fire department would have. You know, it's a standard, you know, universal key. So in an emergency, they would be able to pull up, unlock that gate, and then have access through that entrance onto 175, onto or out to on into the parking lot or out to 175 through that route. Okay.
Excellent. That is good. I'm glad you interrupted me because that was I was going to definitely recommend you don't do that. So to hear that is not an actual exit or entrance to your lot is a good thing. Number 2, just a suggestion from what I've seen around Odenton, where you have that island to just below your over-under units. I highly recommend that you designate that as no parking. You are going to get people parking around that, which is going to be a fire hazard in terms of navigation for fire trucks. So make sure that people don't park around that in order to make sure fire trucks are able to reach the backs of that building. So build that into your design for how you're going to do markings on the road, if you could please. Next is, can you talk about this corner space that you have between buildings 1 and 2, where you're proposing that as as a public activity space? What is that? Because I don't understand what I'm seeing from this picture and then what I'm seeing from your other renderings in terms of how the sidewalks are laid out and what green space is there.
So I can definitely tell you at this point, we haven't done a what I would call detailed design of this space, but the two main entrances, the two lobbies into these buildings are located at this corner. So right now this space is shown as like just a large plaza area. There's some seating here at the corner. There's some landscape spaces that are kind of envisioned or proposed, but in terms of like programming in this space right now, it's just a seating is essentially the main program element, but this space could be used for, community gatherings, maybe not a full-on like farmers market, but like small market activities, any kind of community gathering space. The limits of the green space, though, and the hardscape haven't been determined at this point. This is sort of just conceptual in nature.
Okay, so in follow on, I think it's important for you to actually figure out what you want to do there, because I think right now you're showing a lot of missed opportunities. So for example, you could have used a proffer of saying this is where you want to put community artwork, or you could have had a proffer that said this is where you want to have some type of historic thing that represents Odenton. I don't think your idea of having a like some type of farmers market style like small thing is a bad idea. But right now, the fact that you don't have a good answer there means I'd like to see that something there in the future instead of just what looks like to be a big concrete pad. I don't think that's a good approach to just show it is a flat concrete pad, because I think you could do more there.
Jason,
Yeah.
I am going to comment. This is Stuart.
Mhm.
And I had this conversation with Mark the other day. This is the problem on the timing of when someone has to present to the committee versus when plans are more detailed. And some of these items, when you're developing a project, are just earmarked, so to speak, for a particular event, but hasn't been finalized until you're further down on the plan yet. So just a comment.
Nope, I think that's fair. It's the tough part is that we're being asked to provide a comment. Well, I'll get to that. If we have to provide a comment on the reduced activity space and understanding what the proffers are to account for that. And so point well taken, Stuart, that the process itself doesn't make it easy. So definitely get it. So question. So I'm recording three modification requests. Number one is to clear forest below county minimum. So Mark, is that a OTCMP modification or is that a county code modification?
That's code.
Okay. Clearing specimen trees, if identified, is that a county code modification or is that an OTCMP modification?
Code.
Okay. And then the reduced public activity space below minimum required, is that a county code modification or is that an OTCMP modification?
That is a county code item.
Okay. So all three modification requests are county code modification requests, but the proffers are what are listed in the master plan to try and offset that, but they are an indeterminate number or definition of what those proffers are, is what I'm hearing right now. There's three potentials, but potentially more as these plans get more firmly set. So the question I would have then is, process-wise, I think Stuart's point is a good one, is I'm not certain how the committee can fairly evaluate the proffers against the requests for that public activity space. The reason I say that is I do agree that the workforce housing is important. I think that that's necessary, but what I worry is, are we setting some type of bad view where we're allowing workforce housing to not have the same amount of public activity space that we would require for non-workforce housing? Does that cause, like, is that the swing that the county is okay with, that we know we need workforce housing? Does the need for workforce housing outweigh the need for workforce housing to have public activity spaces and areas for the people who live there to spend time outdoors on the property that they're living at? That's a rhetorical question. I don't expect an answer, by the way. So in terms of the EV charging, I agree with the comments heard so far in terms of 3, where everything was basically rounded down in terms of county minimums. And so my question is, for the county minimum calculations, is it a round down or a round up?
Is that question to me or Mark?
To whoever can answer that, because it's 158 divided by 50, which is slightly more than 3. So is it a round down or is it a round up?
Say that again, Jason.
So the calculation they're using is 158 parking spaces divided by 50 with an EV parking requirement of 3. That tells me that they're doing a round down. So it's a floor calculation of 158 divided by 50 is floored to 3. Is that actually counting requirements, or is it a ceiling to 4 because it's greater than 3 when you do the division?
I couldn't comment on that. I don't interpret the code. Yeah,
That's fine. I just wanted to highlight that I think that you could easily add another proffer by saying 4, and now you're exceeding the county minimum if it is a round down calculation by adding 1 more space, or by allowing for the potential for future additions, as Martin was saying. I think that allows you access to an additional proffer as well. Let's see, that was all the comments I had, other than I applaud you for having a construction as 100% workforce housing. I think that is something desperately needed in the area. And so thank you for that. So Chad, I see your hand up.
Yeah, and if this is not the right time to bring up this point, as in general, we could certainly take it till after the meeting. But I know, at least for speaking for the fort and what we're looking at with our workforce, the county minimum for EV and bike riding is not what we're looking for, or more, I think more accurately, anticipating from our workforce. We're expecting, as it comes in younger, especially with these houses, bike riders with the bike gate right off the installation, and just more electrical cars. So I know one of the things we're working for is, in this region specifically, how can we elevate or move forward with EV, because we're running through those same challenges on the installation as well. But if this isn't the right time to talk about that, that's fine. I just seemed like a good time to throw that in there.
Thanks, Chad.
Just another comment.
Mhm.
If this particular property doesn't have the amenities that someone wants to live there with, they'll go somewhere else. It doesn't have a pool. Some places have a pool. It doesn't have a rec room. Some places have rec rooms. Some people want to exercise. So it's a matter of choice. And you bring up, Jason, a good point about the common area. However, in this particular instance, there's a park across the street being planned. If it ever gets done, I question that. And there's a library across the street. So as far as public amenities being accessible very closely to this property, I think that those things are being accommodated within a very short walk, literally across the street.
Yeah, but I think, Stuart, just to comment on that, I mean, if Chad's saying that, what they're looking for, and there are a lot of people, young people coming into the fort and so on, it's a convenient location. And yeah, it does have the amenities you mentioned. But I think, it would be helpful if we built things that people wanted. Now, maybe some people move in here that are further away from the transit center. Don't use it perhaps, or don't work at the fort, but I just think Chad's position on that might be a good one to consider, and what they're looking for.
You're estimating a demand that's just not there. And my comment would be that when the demand is there, it can always be added. If they're finding that they have residents that want more power stations and that's going to help their leasing, they're going to put them in there. That's their opportunity to add in the future, based on demand, not what we might think.
You mean the charging station, Stuart?
Yeah, they could be put into the future.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Just build it so you can do it later easily.
Well, it could be done whether you build it this way or not. They can be put in, just like you would put in one in your home. Your home isn't built for that. You add it.
With all the
it could be
wiring
done in the future.
Wiring and
So, Stuart, I 100% agree to build on and with the demand. I guess what I'm So every year, about a third of our population rotates out, whether it's from service members, new service members coming in, new employees. The one thing that we have tracked is that more of the new people coming in, especially because our demographics are fairly consistent, more of the people coming in are coming in with electric vehicles. And they're looking to live off post. So that is the only portion of my questions and going through here is that this is for workforce housing, which I'm assuming fairly confidently that, up to mid-grade officers and senior enlisted would qualify for, that those numbers of electric vehicles, at least from what we're seeing and what we're anticipating, is only going to increase. So when they're looking for a place to stay, having those amenities would be important. But if you're saying because hey, capitalism works, if the building can add that, regardless if it's equipped for it yet or not, I'll take your word for it, because that's certainly more in your area of expertise than mine.
Okay, any other comments from the committee? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to open to members of the public. For our members of the public who are in attendance, do you have any comments or questions for this proposal? If you do, please raise your hand, and then Mark can change your status. That way you're able to speak.
And again, you'll have to use the raise hand function in the toolbar below.
All right, so Mark, I see Tim James has his hand up.
Yep.
Hey, I know this is pretty early on, but just curious, is there a ballpark like timeline for start and finish of this development?
Would you like me to answer? As a developer?
Sure.
So we would hope to start construction 12 to 18 months from now. Construction would take about 15 months to complete. So overall, we're looking at somewhere in the range of 2 years before completion. Two to 2.5 years.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, hearing none, I'll bring it back to the committee. So does anyone from the committee have any final questions? All right, so I have a summary of our discussion as well as the items proposed. And so the request in front of the committee is, does the committee feel that this meets the vision and intent of the master plan, with comments that we can provide? The 3 modifications are to the county code. So by our structures, we typically do not comment on the modifications to the county code. Mark, is the county going to want the committee to provide any type of statement on the reduced public activity space, the clearing of specimen trees, or clearing the forest below county minimum? You're muted right now, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. Again, is now that these items have been moved over to the code, again, is it's not within the committee's purview.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect.
And sorry, I just want to jump in. Is the committee did receive a letter of support from the Arundel Community Development Services. Jason, did you want to read that, or do you mind if I read that?
I can if you would like, or if you want to read, go for it.
It's addressed to you, so I'll leave if you want to go for it.
Okay, so it says, Dear Chairman Schwier, on behalf of the Arundel Community Development Services Incorporated, ACDS, I'm writing in support of Osprey Development Company's Odenton Junction project. Odenton Junction, to be located at 1457 Hale Street in Odenton, will add 122 new units for families to the county's inventory of affordable workforce housing. There is a shortage of over 12,000 affordable workforce rental units in Arundel County. ACDS has collaborated and supported Osprey in the past to develop well-designed, well-managed housing developments that have been well received by their surrounding communities. These developments include Victoria Park at Edgewater, completed Edgewater, Eagle Park Village, under construction, Hanover, and Eagle Park Vistas, under construction, Hanover. The proposed Odenton Junction development is being designed to complement the surrounding developments and meet the vision of the Odenton Town Center Advisory Committee. It will be a well-managed property that provides a variety of amenities in close proximity to a variety of transportation modes. We are thrilled that Osprey was able to secure competitive funding from the state of Maryland and look forward to supporting Osprey Property Company in the development of this project through low-interest financing and other workforce housing initiatives. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or concerns at her email address. Sincerely, Aaron Karpowitz, Chief Executive Officer.
Thanks, Jason.
All right, so for the committee, you've heard that we have a letter from let's get their acronym again, the ACDS. Was sent us a letter of support for this project. There are 3 modifications requested at this point in time. All 3 are to the county code and therefore outside the purview of the OTCAC. I am uncertain how we weigh the proffers because the modifications are to assess the proffers. I think that we could say that we believe the proffers are I honestly don't know. The three listed so far: exceeding green area, potential for additional bike spaces. I would say potential does not necessarily qualify as a proffer. The excess of native planting requirements, and then there are potentially more that are undefined at this point in time. Discussion that we've had so far has been, it sounds like the committee would like the proposal to look at strengthening the EV charging area. If that to include, it does not necessarily mean installation of chargers at this point in time, but a commitment that if there is additional demand, that the infrastructure, this proposal is built to support that additional demand. So you could increase the number of charging stations in the future. They will take back solar panels to the development team. The committee would like to strengthen the bike spaces language to say that this property is, or the committee members have proposed, I shouldn't say the committee, the members have proposed increasing that number of bike spaces because this area is in close proximity to this wasn't mentioned, but I'll mention it here. Close proximity to bike into Fort Meade because they can take the bicycle pedestrian gate. It's actually very, very close to this property, as well as just simply biking over to the parking lot or to other shopping complexes in the area. And then the entrance on 175 is not an entrance for anyone who is a resident of the community. It's an emergency entrance exit only and will be gated. So that eliminates any concerns about potential turning cars. And then as well, any of the renderings showing parking on Town Center Boulevard are not accurate, that this project is not proposing any parking on Town Center Boulevard. So the question for the committee is, does this meet the intent and vision of the master plan?
I think with those provisos, Jason, yes, I do.
Anyone else have any comments or thoughts?
Jason, also, did you want to include the no parking around the island outside the townhomes?
Mhm.
Yep, good call. I will add that to recommend that the design incorporates no parking around the islands and outcroppings to ensure access for emergency vehicles.
And Jason, also, the plan calls for the facade around the outside of the building. The examples that were shown looked pretty good to me. I just want to, from my standpoint, emphasize the importance of those facades and how they look in the town center. So appreciate the attention to that.
Okay. I can add that as well. All right, any other comments? Okay, so I would entertain a motion to for a letter that states that the OTCAC feels that this proposed project meets the intent and vision of the Odenton Town Center Master Plan 2023 and recommends its approval. We do not provide any type of remark on the modifications, nor are we providing any remarks on the proffers, as that list presented was not complete.
You want to state that, Jason, as the reason why we don't have a comment on it?
Yes. Yeah, so the reason is for
No,
modifications
no.
because they're part of the county code, as well as the proffer list has not been completely identified yet.
Yeah, right.
I can mention that the committee did feel that there are additional opportunities with this property for additional proffers that are yet unmentioned. For example, the activity space in the corner, depending on its determined use. I can say that. I will add language about the EV charging stations and recommending that the design at least allow for the potential increase of EV charging stations, have that built in from the beginning, as we see that is, and Fort Meade was very clear that they are seeing a clear trend in the increase in electric vehicles. And I do think Chad's point of the Fort population wanting to take advantage of this property, I think is actually a very sound statement that I agree with him on that as well. Knowing the pay scales of our GG employees as well as GS employees, and then the enlisted and junior officers. I can mention they will take solar panels back to the development team, and we encourage looking at other environmental factors, as well as increasing the bike spaces, as well as the incorporation of no parking around the islands as that design gets set, and then a compliment that says we applaud the 100% workforce housing, and as well as the facade design to make this fit into the Odenton Town Center community. So I would entertain a motion for all of that.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, thank you, Sandy. So Martin moved and Sandy second. All right. Anything I forgot? All right, hearing none, then any objection to the proposed very lengthy motion? All right, hearing none, I'm going to say that the committee votes in favor, knowing that we have multiple members who are like that Stuart is sick and doesn't want to speak much, as well as Brenda is on her phone. So hearing no objections, the committee recommends the approval of this as complying with the OTCMP 2023 master plan. So thank you for presentation. We'll get a letter out to planning and zoning within the coming weeks.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate the
Thank
feedback.
you.
Thank you.
All right. All right. So next on our agenda, Stuart, I saw you had your hand up. Is it a comment for now, or should we keep?
It was a vote.
Okay.
A little
Okay,
late.
so that's fine. I appreciate that you agree with the motion. So next on our agenda is Anne Arundel County Development Application Review Process. So this is something that we've talked about at previous meetings, is needing a better understanding of how the development review process actually occurs. And so we appreciate Courtney, you being able to come in to talk to us about this, just to help educate the committee and give us some better understanding of how these applications go through the process and how the OTCAC fits into that process. So over to you.
Thanks. Well, it's pretty simple. It hasn't changed. If you're going to subdivide, there is the 2 steps. First step would be to obtain your sketch plan approval. And then the second step would be to obtain your final plan approval. Once you've obtained your final plan approval, then you submit your plats, complete your PWA agreements, and then you go ahead and proceed to permit. The same thing occurs with development when you're not subdividing, except for the steps are called preliminary plan first, then site development plan, then you proceed to your grading and building permits. Each application has a 45 to 60-day review turnaround from the county. We strive for 45 days, but to accommodate some of the understaffed departments, we have been allowing that to push out to 60 days. Once we provide comments, the applicant then has 60 days to respond. That cycle will repeat itself until we're able to issue a decision, whether that be an approval or a denial. If it's an approval, you proceed to that next step, whether it be final if it's a subdivision or SDP if it's not a subdivision. And the same process recurs all over again. You have 45 to 60 days to receive comments from the county. Then you have 60 days to resubmit back to the county. That review process cycle continues until we're able to issue a decision. That's it.
Okay, so the OTCAC hears these projects, like these proposals, like you just heard, and so we're going to craft a letter that that goes to the county. What happens with that?
The letter?
Yeah, like so our letter, where does it go? What happens to that? Where does what do you do with it?
Okay, well, it first gets forwarded to me and the planner who's assigned to manage the project and do the planning review. If there is something in the application or in your letter that pertains maybe to road infrastructure or traffic or utilities, anything outside of what a planning purview would be, we would then forward it to those other review agencies for their consideration when they're doing their review. So any recommendations that you guys provide, we take into consideration when we're doing our reviews.
Okay, so that's in I guess the first stage, and that like the first 45 to 60-day review back and forth is where the letter has its most impact, is what it sounds like.
And if we don't have that letter with that first submittal, that's one of our standard comments, is that we need that letter from you guys. And then the applicants will typically reach out if we haven't received it, but we're usually getting them from you pretty quick.
Okay, I try not to delay more than, I think the longest it goes, just for the committee to understand, is around like the Christmas holiday. Sometimes it takes me like 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get the letter, but I try to get.
I wouldn't know, because it probably takes me 4 to look for it then, if that's the case.
Okay, even better.
I will say that the new update, it's a little different now. I think Mark alluded to it a bit, that a lot of the stuff has been taken out of the master plan and placed in the code. So you folks are only going to be commenting now on incentive program requirements. So if they're not proposing an incentive program and they're coming in with a modification, we wouldn't be looking for the letters from you. But we would be looking for the letters for the sketch plan and preliminary plan submittals. That being said, if they come in with a modification to be allowed to combine those processes into of either a final plan or a site development plan, meeting all of the checklist requirements for both processes, we're going to be requiring a condition of approval for those modifications that they present to you folks with that final plan or SDP, since they won't have the option to do it at that first step if they're skipping it. Does that make sense?
That actually did make sense quite a bit. And that made me wonder, we didn't actually get a modification request from this last presentation to do any of the typical merging of these processes. So that never came up.
They haven't submitted anything, so
Okay.
maybe they plan to go for the full Monty. I don't know.
Okay. Okay. I feel like I'm asking all the questions. Does anyone on the committee have questions? I'll keep asking questions if not.
Somebody help me.
So, all right. So
go ahead.
All right, so we have the letter, and it's focused on the incentive program. So one of the big challenges that we're trying to figure out, and I told Mark that Martin and I are happy to come and come down to actually talk to planning and zoning to figure out how can we make the letter more useful. And so, for example, the new 2023 plan has a whole list of the goals, objectives. How detailed should the committee get when doing it, like these types of reviews, to say does something or does something not meet the master plan? Like, what is most valuable to your review in terms of the goals and the vision aspect of the master plan?
Well, there have been occasions where we've had applicants, present to you guys and you're in support of it, and that's great, but most of the proposal doesn't even meet the plan requirements. And so I guess it would be helpful for us if you would acknowledge that they're not meeting certain requirements. But I mean, that's a lot of work and it's not expected. It's tough for us to implement the plan and the code requirements when they tell us, well, the committee said it's great and they love it and they've already approved it. And then so we kind of have to, backpedal on that and explain why, it's a recommendation. They agree that the proposed development is something they'd like to see, but you still have to meet the code requirements.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, we've been trying to do a better job in distinguishing what is a code requirement and saying that we are not providing any type of opinion or recommendation regarding the code, and be much more clear in terms of the approval.
It's going to be easier for you now that this plan, they've separated them out.
Right.
Because there's not a whole lot in the master plan.
Right. Okay, so in terms of like this last one, they have a whole list of things for the built environment. Is it helpful for us or helpful for you if we say that we do feel like that where they list off where they feel like they're meeting the plan because these points in the built environment, we agree with that. We don't feel they're meeting this part of the master plan in terms of the goals because they didn't list off they've had missed opportunities in terms of like, for example, the Odenton Park. There are items there for the plan, and so we could have said that, well, you could contribute toward making the park a better place. So you're saying that's an amenity that you're helping to pay for, basically. Is that helpful to say that there are missed opportunities where they could have done more, but they didn't?
Well, we do get a lot of pressure from the developers. They want us to tell them what to proffer. And I can't do that. I don't even know enough about, Odenton and its amenities and what's really needed by the residents there to ask for something. And I think that that's where you guys could play a big role. When they're coming in with incentive programs and they're asking what they can proffer, I think that you guys are the ones with the boots on the grounds and the ones that can say, this is what we really need and what we think would be an acceptable proffer.
And that is in the master plan. We do have that map. Granted, it's a static map, and there have been things added identifying where the community amenities are. And we've talked when we were developing the master plan that maybe we have too many benches, or I know that's over the landscape manual, I think. But where are there tot lots, or where aren't there tot lots? And maybe that is the committee's objective here, is referring back to that static map or providing you all an updated one and say, hey, we're noticing that there isn't this desired amenity within a quarter mile or something. So.
Okay. So what does the committee members, what do you think about that in terms of how we can approach some of these proposals? Curious in your thoughts. And really, it's just Sandy and Martin are the two I can see. I do think Courtney's request is fair in terms of like helping to sit, like kind of what we traditionally the committee has done more of that. We've like in the past, we've not done that as much recently in terms of, say, suggesting like where they could do better in terms of their proposals. Martin, you always bring up solar panels. That's like the consistent do better in solar panels. Yeah. But looking across the entire proffer list, like we could start doing things more, saying like, why have you thought about this? Or have you thought about like art installations? Have you thought about that, the history incorporation, the things like that? And that does give us the ability to then say, like the committee brought up, like here are other proffers that could have been used and weren't.
That's a good idea. I'd like to see us do more of that. Also, just to tie it back to our vision. I mean, we had a vision statement that we developed a long time ago. And, we should be looking at that vision statement from now, once in a while when we get these coming in. to see if in fact we're moving in that direction or not. And then look at the proffers, as you mentioned, Jason, that could be, suggested as ways to reach that vision.
Sandy, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know that we want to get in the business of telling them what proffers they should be making, but to direct them to look at more opportunities and still stay somewhat vague so that they themselves can be creative.
They can always be just recommendations. It's truly up to them to decide what they at the end want to proffer.
Yeah.
But if they're
Yeah.
asking us, what should we do? What can we proffer? What will you accept? Any recommendation would be great, even for us to consider.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Jason, just a point of order. I believe we've lost quorum.
Okay.
We
We
do
don't have
have,
any votes.
again, just looking, I just want to take a moment here and look over the list. So we have Brenda on the phone, Sandy, Martin, and yourself.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
so
we have lost quorum. From what I understand, we can, I wanted to jump in there because I think you can finish your sort of train of thought,
Mhm.
but we cannot conduct any more business here. So you can just take a motion for procedural items. So at this point, you could just motion to adjourn. Again, the thing is I know you're not necessarily conducting business because this is just sort of an informational item, but I could also interpret it that if you're looking for feedback from Courtney and asking for the committee's perspective on things, it could be interpreted
Mhm.
as business. So
That's, yeah. Okay, so what I will do then is refrain. I'd like to have a few more question and answer items. I can make sure that my comments are not going toward asking for things that would be considered directive for the committee. Then if that's all right. So for example, can you provide us and the public information, this is the Courtney, for that how does the county, because I would think that explaining county processes is not, it can't be, I would not say that would be interpretable as conducting a business where you're explaining how the county process works to the public. I think I think we're fair there. So, and then Mark, please correct me if I'm wrong.
We do have all of the application processes really spelled out on our OPZ website under the development tab. So you guys can also go there at some point.
Yep. So I guess the only question I have is, in the case of where more information comes out during the process, how does the county process work in terms of interaction with the previous, any previous discussions with the OTCAC? How does it work in follow on later on in the process? Like, does the county require going back to the OTCAC, going back to do community input, or does the county keep moving forward through the process?
Most of the time we continue to move forward because it's an iterative process. I mean, the changes are just going to happen based on the comments and response, but they're never supposed to be, a full blown change to the project, say go from 100 units to 300 units, an extra 6 stories, anything like that. We would send back to the OTC for a new presentation. But if
Okay.
it's just minor changes, tweaks to the plan because of the comment and review process, we wouldn't ask them to go back.
Okay.
Hey, Jason, I have a maybe oddball question here. Maybe Courtney can help with this too. I don't know. But, apartment complexes like the ones we saw tonight, there's quite a few units and I suspect there's going to be more like that. Where are we following up with transportation needs? how is that being evaluated? One of the
That's a
things
good
that
question.
one of the things that we talked about, I think, many times in the past has been the use of public transportation. Now, granted, the one we just discussed tonight is across the street from a bus and train terminal. But in a general sense, you know, that was one of our priorities, is to look at public transportation. So, but as these come in, these developments come in, who's looking after the transportation aspect of it? How is that being?
So we have in the Office of Planning and Zoning, a transportation review department, and they review all development and subdivision applications for compliance with the code and the parole plan.
Mhm.
I know there's been some changes, so I don't know. I can't speak to what those changes are because I don't review
Okay.
traffic. But we do have someone just like me that oversees all of the traffic in the county.
Okay, well, just trying to encourage the use of public transportation and to make or expand that service in the area.
Well, that's a different department altogether. That's the transportation division in the county, and that's not OPZ transportation. And they're not under the Office of Planning and Zoning at all.
The issue is that, you know, we have this nice train station at Odenton, which is fairly busy. But the challenge is that first and last mile, getting people from the train station to home and vice versa to the train station, they're driving their cars. So that's adding to the road load, you know, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Chapel, I can barely get out of my driveway at Chapel, or our road.
Okay. So Martin, unfortunately, I have to stop us. So basically the feedback we're getting right now is yes, without quorum, unfortunately, we can't continue. Just even asking about county processes, we can't continue. So what we can do is send questions to the county and then we can get the responses at the next
Sure.
meeting.
Yeah, fair enough.
So
I'll follow up in an email after, or tomorrow rather, noting what had happened this evening to you all as a committee, and ask that if you do have further questions about the development review process, I'll forward them on to Courtney. Courtney, take a month to respond to those questions.
No, it won't.
and I can read those responses to those questions at the July meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
that works.
Yeah,
Okay,
sounds good.
so yeah, okay, so thank you, Courtney, for taking some time this evening. Mark, I do have one request. If you could please do a count of unexcused absences for committee members,
Mm-hmm.
and then review that against the bylaws to find out if we have to warn any committee members about them being kicked off the committee.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, Courtney.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night. So if you could please do that account, or have someone in the county do the accounting, however you want to do that. But I think we need to make sure that we have these bylaws. We need to make sure that that check is being done. So without further ado, then I would, since we're allowed procedure motions, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Second by Sandy. Okay, any objection? All right. Thanks everyone for this not standard meeting. I appreciate it, and have a great evening.